Welcome to the show. It's finally upon us, the series finale to Game of Thrones, and today we're going to find some clues from the books and from past seasons to answer the burning question of who will sit on the Iron Throne.
Oh la la! Oh, king in the castle, king in the castle. Have a chair, I have a chair.
It makes sense though. Tywin Lannister said, "Wisdom makes a good king." And there's really nobody wiser than Bran. He's the wisest person in Westeros. And the musical chair world champion.
You know I'm mobbing with the D.R.E.
Alright. In all seriousness, in the books, A Song of Ice and Fire, of which the show Game of Thrones is based on, Daenerys Stormborn Targaryen, Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea, aka the Mad Queen 2.0,
Burn, Queen, burn!
is given a prophecy that may have foreshadowed the ending of Game of Thrones. 3 fires you must light, 1 for life, 1 for death, and 1 for love. 3 mounts you must ride, 1 to bed, 1 to dread, and 1 to love. 3 treasons you will know, once for blood, and once for gold, and once for love. Granted, the show and the books are different. Let's look at some other clues that the books have hinted at. So regarding the Azor Ahai, or the Prince Who Was Promised prophecy, there are tons of clues that suggest that any number of characters could actually be Azor Ahai. Most have come to the conclusion that it's Arya, since she iced the Night King.
Oh, okay. I see what you did there.
Part of the prophecy says Azor Ahai will be reborn among smoke and salt, wake dragons from stone, and be reborn under a bleeding star. All of these, and especially the bleeding red star, could have multiple meanings, such as the comet Bran saw way back in Season 1, the bleeding star on Lancel Lannister's head, or even Loras Tyrell's head. Or perhaps they were just red herrings.
Red herring. We should have known.
In the books, Melisandre says, "I pray for a glimpse of Azor Ahai, and R'hllor only shows me snow." So I believe Jon Snow is the prince who was promised, but more on that later. Dany's prophecy states 3 mounts you must ride. That sounds like some classic George R.R. Martin stuff right there. I believe the 1 to bed was Khal Drogo. Now the 1 to dread could either be Drogon, if you take these prophecies more literally, or her second husband, which she married a Marine, but you probably forgot about him because he was killed by the Sons of the Harpy. And the 1 to love is probably Jon Snow. Finally, the 3 fires. 1 for life, which is the fire she lights on Drogo's funeral pyre, in which she arises with her newly awakened dragons, awoken from stone. 2 for death, where she lights the fire that kills the Khalasar and retakes her mantle as Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea. And 3 to love, which could either be her lighting Ser Jorah Mormont's funeral pyre because he did love her, and she him, just in a different way. Or perhaps the final one will happen in the series finale. And maybe it involves Dany attempting to execute her nephew/lover, Jon/Aegon.
Whoop-de-doo! What does it all mean, Basil?
But what if the betrayals, the treasons, aren't what they seem, and are not betrayals that Dany herself will endure, but rather betrayals by Dany? Regarding the betrayals, the 1 for blood was when she used blood magic to try and save Khal Drogo's life and ended up having a miscarriage. And because I don't think the betrayals necessarily go in any particular order, the betrayal for gold is when she has her brother Viserys murdered by pouring molten gold onto his head. Seriously, no one saw the whole Mad Queen thing?
When my dragons are grown, we will take back what was stolen from me and destroy those who have wronged me. We will lay waste to armies and burn cities to the ground.
Anyway, on to the 3rd, the betrayal for love. I think Dany betrayed her goal to sit on the Iron Throne when she joined Jon's cause. and I think the ending was foreshadowed way back in the House of the Undying vision from Season 2. Daenerys enters the House of the Undying and is suddenly in the throne room of the Red Keep. The roof is damaged and snow seems to be falling. She lays down her fire and walks up to touch the Iron Throne, which is seemingly covered in snow. And although she comes very close, she never actually touches it. Instead, her attention is taken and she is suddenly beneath the wall, entering the true north beyond the wall, foreshadowing her journey north, where the Night King kills Viserion in her attempt to save Jon Snow, and capture a White in order to convince Cersei of the impending danger of the Night King and the Long Night. Perhaps the snow falling on the Iron Throne foreshadows Jon Snow as king. Or perhaps it isn't snow at all. Maybe it's ash, raining down after Dany's destruction of King's Landing and the Red Keep. A lot of the foreshadowing is in the actual naming of the cities as well. Winterfell is where the Night King falls, and he represents winter. And let's not forget that although the story tells us that King's Landing is named after the spot where Aegon the Conqueror landed on the continent of Westeros, it was far more likely a setup being paid off in this moment. King Tommen's death. King's Landing. Brilliant stuff, George. Brilliant. But speaking of the Night King and Jon Snow, let's get into the Battle of Winterfell. Now I know that many people would think Jon didn't do anything at the Battle of Winterfell, but Jon's true source of power has always been his ability to unite people. If not for Jon, they wouldn't have the army needed to fight the army of the dead. Not only that, if you rewatch the scene where he faces off against Viserion, he is actually yelling, "Go! Go!" as if he saw Arya and decided to distract the undead dragon, sacrificing himself once again so that Arya could deliver the final blow to the Night King. Not to mention that one particular loss suffered during the Battle of Winterfell, one of a Ser Jorah Mormont, is where Dany begins her full-blown descent into Mad Queen 2.0 mode. Here's how I think it's going to go down. Dany is probably going to lose to Jon in an epic battle, in which Jon will attack Dany with his sword, Drogon will light them both on fire knowing Dany can survive, and when the fire dissipates, we'll be showing Jon removing the sword from the flames and Dany's dead body while he is still alive, revealing his true heritage as a Targaryen. Honestly, if Jon doesn't survive a burning at some point, I will feel it's an opportunity wasted, because although it would have been an epic reveal at the Battle of Winterfell to see him arise stark naked from the blue flames, but if this or something similar happens instead, I'll be pretty satisfied. Now I know the fandom is losing its mind about there not being a happy ending because the Song of Ice and Fire is supposed to be a love song, right? Wrong. Songs can be about many things, and in Game of Thrones songs, musical cues are often a warning. Songs can be about many things, and in Game of Thrones, songs and musical cues are often a warning, and perhaps Jon is the Song of Ice and Fire, in that his mother Lyanna Stark represented ice, and his father Rhaegar Targaryen represented fire. Or maybe this has all been about people being used as pawns in a war being pit by the many-faced god of death, represented by winter and ice, and R'hllor, the Lord of Light, representing fire. But it's more likely that the Song of Ice and Fire is a warning about the horrors of war. Seriously, people have really been hating on the narrative choices this season, but I honestly think that given the format and the time constraints, the clues have, for the most part, been right there in front of us. And it's for all of these reasons that I believe in the end, the person that will sit on the Iron Throne is no one. And no, I don't mean Arya. And I do not mean Jaqen H'ghar, although that would be one hell of a twist. Nope, not even Tyrion, even though he is perfectly qualified, and he may actually be a Targaryen because in the books, it's kind of implied that the Mad King Aerys Targaryen bedded Tywin Lannister's wife, and this may be one of the reasons that Tywin hates Tyrion so much, despite him being a dwarf and killing his mother in childbirth, which Dany and Jon both did also. Not to mention Tywin's last words to Tyrion, which were, "You are no son of mine." And the dragon has 3 heads, just saying. Nope, not Sansa either, who is basically the new Littlefinger, foreshadowed by the nickname given to her by the Hound, Little Bird, because Lord Peter Baelish's house crest was a mockingbird after all. And no, even though I mentioned it earlier, it's not Bran. Although he could have been manipulating all these events all along, as I initially suspected he might be the Night King from a past warging experience gone wrong, but that didn't turn out, so the latest and greatest is that he may be the Lord of Light. Or not. And no, believe it or not, it will not be Jon Snow, aka Aegon Targaryen, 6th of his name, or whatever. The first Aegon was called Aegon the Conqueror, and that's not a title befitting of Jon. Maybe for Dany. No, definitely for Dany. I think Jon will be the one to break the wheel, in that there will be no ruler of the Seven Kingdoms, because the Seven Kingdoms will be divided. The Iron Throne corrupts all who seek it, like the Ring of Power from The Lord of the Rings. And the Ring of Power nearly destroyed Frodo. Unlike the Ring of Power, the Iron Chair itself being destroyed is irrelevant, as what it represents, power, is still the corrupting factor. So the only way to destroy what the Iron Throne represents is to dissolve the Empire. Let each of the Seven Kingdoms rule themselves once again, as it was before Aegon the First. And as such, Jon will leave King's Landing in ruins, and leave to the north, the true north, no longer the King in the north, but perhaps even the King of Winter, Aegon, the Lightbringer.